Creating beyond calculation, beyond politics, and beyond the big two. Welcome, Silverliners, to the wonderful world of Wednesday Wham. I'm your host, Dean Zachary. You're joined tonight by the core crew, Barbara J. Kelberg, the Empress of the Eames, Rob Davis, the Paragon of Pencils, the superior skeptic Aaron Hubbard, and one of the Wizards of Wordplay, dressed for the occasion, Rory Boyle. How is everybody? How y'all doing tonight, partners?
Howdy, partner.
And lady. We know, by the way, just so everyone
I'm going to have to go get my hat.
I know, you got to find your hat, Rob. These are not obviously.
I've got one.
Good. Bring it out, Ken. These aren't obviously official
You
cowboy
purchased
hats.
it brand new in 1882.
Yeah.
Off the rack.
That's how authentic it is.
It's authentic. Working on the range with it all the time. Obviously,
Yep.
Tonight's subject is cowboys in comics. We're going to be talking about Western comic books, the influence of Western entertainment in general on comic books, and the opportunity for that Western theme to be resurrected, perhaps, in new comic books. I think the time is now. But before we go a little bit further, Aaron has a screen to share. We want to talk about our giveaway. There's a giveaway drawing for Silverline, and what it is for 4 two-day passes to the Daytona Beach Comic Convention. It's a great deal. 4 two-day passes to the Daytona Beach Comic Convention on September 10th and 11th. So all you have to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/C/Silverline Comics. That's youtube.com/C/Silverline Comics. Subscribe to the channel, like it, and qualify for 4 two-day passes to the Daytona Beach Comic Convention, of which I will be attending, and several of us will be there. I think Rory's going to be there. So Aaron, possibly not. He's been banned from all shows from henceforth.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, he's got to get special permission from Roland, so we're going to let them work that out.
Yeah.
And Rob, I don't think you're going to make it this year, but next year, right?
Nope. I'm hoping for next year. I asked
Hoping for
about
next
this year, and I was told I was too late.
Too late.
It's
Too late.
already full
and
up.
Barb, next year, right? Or this year?
Next year. I'm booked
Next year.
every weekend this month. That's coming
Oh,
in September.
Wow.
That's a good thing.
Not a comic book show. It's just for various things.
I see. Okay. So everybody, don't forget during the show, go to the URL that you see there on the screen and sign up and subscribe and qualify and win 4 two-day passes. Okay. So Cowboys, first of all, Barb, I'm going to let you get started. You shared something off camera with us that I'm sure people want to hear. You have a shared birth state with a very famous Western actor. Tell us a little bit about that.
I do. I'm from Iowa originally, which shares the birth state of Marion Morrison, who was born in Winterset, Iowa. Can anybody tell me what his stage name is?
John Wayne, ladies and
That's
gentlemen.
right. That's right. I was also born the same year that Bonanza started, 1959. Can you believe it? And it went for what, 17 years?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, it was a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a long time.
I'm thinking 11 seasons.
That is
but
so
I don't know
cool.
for
Look at
sure.
that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's awesome, right?
Bonanza comic books, and I was a massive Little Joe fan from a very
Oh,
young
no
age.
doubt. Yeah.
Yep.
Him and Jim West from Wild Wild West. Yeah.
Yes, me too.
Robert
I was a
Conrad.
big fan of that. Rob, what about you? I know you probably grew up on the Cowboy TV shows, and who are some of your favorites?
Well, Roy Rogers.
Yeah.
Little boys back in the day. Roy Rogers was it as far as singing cowboys went. Some other great shows that I didn't get to see much of because we only had 2 channels when I was growing up, so we didn't get some of the I think it was ABC we didn't have the affiliate for. So anything that was on ABC, we were lucky if maybe one of the other 2 would pick it up. But Have Gun Will Travel, probably one of the most unique cowboy shows ever, in that the guy spouted Shakespeare.
Interesting.
Cool. That's
and
cool.
lived in San Francisco. It was very well to do, but someone would hire him. His Have Gun Will Travel. He would hire. He
Trying to
would hire
remember
out that he'd go
the name of that actor.
philosophize and blanking on his name at the moment.
Me too.
So those shows got you into the Western. Everybody almost was a Western fan. You know, I was too, growing up even in the 70s.
Well, you couldn't swing a dead cat and not hit one. I mean,
they were all over the place.
There was Laramie, there was High
everywhere.
Chaparral, there was
High
Rawhide,
Chaparral.
there was Gunsmoke, there was Bonanza, there was
Rifleman.
Rifleman was
with
big.
Chuck Connors.
Yeah, there
Watched
were,
them
and Wanted Dead or Alive was for one season with
Alias Smith
So-
and Jones.
So what about
Steve
what about-
McQueen? I was at
Steve
Dick
McQueen,
for a minute.
right.
Steve McQueen.
Ooh, Steve McQueen.
Wanted
What
Dead,
about-
Dead or Alive.
What about comic book versions of this? Now, did that start to enter your childhood at that point? Was it simultaneous? Like when you started grabbing onto comics, were there enough Western comics to choose from? Rob?
That was that's the Marvel had like a Two Gun Kid and Rawhide Kid. And so they had stuff like that. Those were kind of interesting. A lot of those had Kirby artwork in them, so it was great storytelling and really dynamic work. But it got even better later on when Severin, Marie Severin, and blanking on her husband's name, came in and started doing westerns, and they were a lot grittier then, a little more realistic. So there were a lot of. There weren't quite as many comic books westerns as there were TV show westerns, but there were enough of them. By the time I was really into it, a lot of the big black and white western shows had gone off the air and they were in reruns. They were in syndication, which is where I saw a lot of them. And by the time they got into syndication, they were no longer fodder for comic books at that point. They were they'd already gone. Their expiration date had come and gone. Comics.
What about you, Aaron? What about you? Like, when you were younger, were there westerns still kind of out there, or was it every now and then a movie would come out or something like that?
Yeah, it was in the 80s. I mean, I grew up in the 80s, so I mean, there was like Young Guns. I was a big
Silverado.
Fan of,
You remember?
I was a big fan
Silverado.
of Unforgiven.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked Unforgiven.
That's a good one.
I do like a lot of modern Western movies. Never got into a lot of Western TV shows. Now we had sci-fi. And morning cartoons. We had like Brave Star and like the sci-fi mixed with the Old West. If you know these cartoons.
Firefly. Was
Firefly was one I really enjoyed. Yeah. So that I thought I
and they're
liked
still
those.
making that.
Yeah, they're still making the comics. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I liked a lot of. I always thought it was like horror genre and the Old West went together well.
Oh yeah,
they do.
Yeah,
where they put that together. I think that works well.
I've seen them do that. Throw in some Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Jonah Hex.
Yeah.
There was even an interesting hybrid 10 years ago called Cowboys and Aliens, which is kind of odd.
Yeah, that was a comic book, and then and then it came
made
a
movie. Yeah.
So is it fair to say, though, that as we get into the Bronze Age, 70s, the horror genre kind of blends a little with Westerns, and then horror superheroes sort of take over, and Westerns kind of take like that second or third seat back, but movies start bringing things back. So every few years you'd get either a Clint Eastwood Western, you'd get a Silverado, you'd get something in the theater that would harken back to those days.
Well, I think a lot of the West, especially in the movies, Unforgiven was one of the ones.
Mm-hmm.
I think this one spaghetti westerns changed it a lot.
Yeah.
Gritty Tombstone,
Tombstone's
spaghetti western, Unforgiven. The Western started going more gritty and more like what would it really be like. There were less more of the fantasy tropes of the old Hollywood. Nothing bad. They just switched gears.
Sure.
And so I think that was the difference, because even when I watch like the old John Wayne and stuff, they're okay. They don't do much for me, but because I didn't grow up on them, I grew up on like Unforgiven and stuff, so it was like a totally different take on the Old West.
Did you see reruns like the Sergio Leone, the spaghetti westerns.
I've watched
really,
a few of those, and I like
those.
Yeah,
Those were grittier. Those are more what American films became later.
yeah,
And I think that's why they're sort of a shock to the system of the American genre, because they were much more stylized and gritty. And Rory and I were discussing this off camera a little bit earlier. What was that? It seemed as though it took an objective viewer, a European filmmaker, to take a look at our material and give us their romanticized version of it. And so it had a completely different feel, much grittier, darker, slower paced in many ways.
I think they were
certainly atmospheric.
Right. I think the one thing that the spaghetti westerns really did well was bring out more of the outlaw notion of the Old West. That these people were not good or bad. They were the anti-hero, and that the Old West was had that wild streak in it, not like the John Wayne films and stuff.
Right.
And then, of course, as he went on, John Wayne did more of those films. Later on, he did more films that were grittier and stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. He did all those spaghetti westerns from the Italian, like The Man with No Name and all those, and those were yes.
And Eastwood became the epitome of like,
right. They were definitely anti-hero because he wasn't your clean cut white guy.
Right.
Exactly.
That was more, and in fact, that character lives on now as Boba Fett and the Mandalorian. So we have taken those themes and the archetypes.
The character still always makes the right decision.
Yeah,
in the end, it still always makes the moral decision.
Yeah, it's really interesting how that works. Even, because you get the idea, and this is again part of the archetype of the Western, the grittier Western. Even a self-serving, complete mercenary, like the character that Clint Eastwood often played in his movies, he'd have his heart melted at some point and protect the innocent, right? And go after like the gang that was destroying the town or, attacking the girl or whatever. And he would just be like, I can't tolerate this. As much as I don't want to get involved and put my butt on the line for these people, I can't watch this happen. And so he would just come in and clean house.
He would go shoot Lee Van Cleef.
Lee Van Cleef, right. So that was always interesting to me and that added another layer of tension because as you're suggesting, Aaron, in the early days, you had the dark hats and the white hats, and everybody knew who was good and who was bad. It was very clear cut, like High Noon. Yeah. But then you get into the modern ones, and the transformation of the mercenary, the transformation of the cynical, sort of outlaw character into a defender of the innocent was always fascinating. It's like, what's going to make him? What's going to be too far? What's going to make him finally do something good? Well,
that's what I like so much about Unforgiven, because he didn't do the right thing. And I think even regardless of it being a Western, just a storyline, because it was the idea of like, they could never see past what he did. He could never be forgiven for what he was. And so he was like, fine, if this is what you think I am, then I'm just going to dive whole into it. I mean, and I remember Eastwood talking that he really wanted to show the West as like death is death. Like there's no right or wrong. It's just, I mean, this guy just happened to be a killer and stuff.
But I remember a line. Was it a line from that, Aaron, where am I remembering this line correctly? Doesn't Eastwood's character deliver a line where someone says to him, you've got it coming, and he says, we've all got it.
We all got it coming, because that was the kid, and that, I mean, even at the end of the thing, because what he was he was also critiquing the romanticizing of the Hollywood, because if you remember in the movie, there was a writer who was writing about these gunslingers, and when he finally came face to face with Eastwood after he wasn't shot, he was romantic, like asking him, was totally enamored with this guy. Until Eastwood turned the gun on him, and then he realized this guy's just a straight up killer. I do remember my favorite line from that was he was like asking Eastwood, like, so who'd you kill first? Did you kill like Little John? I think it was like Big John, or because he was the best shot first or whatever. Right. And Eastwood's like, huh? And he's all like, well, who's next? And then he was like, "Well, I got lucky in the order." He's like, "But I've always got lucky when it comes to killing folks." And it was just like the idea that was his natural gift.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he just was good at this, and that just
It's like Wolverine, right?
Yeah, it was just such a great line because it's so casually spoken. It's just
Absolutely.
like, yeah.
So speaking of Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, if we can, the Australians have a similar history with the same kind of cowboy character. I think they're the only other country that is so similar. Hugh Jackman, was it the Drover or the Drover movie?
I believe so.
He did that, and then there was Quigley Down Under, which is actually
Quigley Down Under, great film.
Down Under with Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck.
Yeah.
We were talking about the proposition.
To be a cowboy. I mean, he makes a great cowboy, but Tom Selleck is tall. I mean, no matter how much you see, like no matter any other actor, that guy's got to be 6'6" something.
I'll tell you who was
Sam Elliott's up there.
into Cowboys, and that was Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That man was born a cowboy. He was born with a mustache.
Are you
Not
born with a
mistaken,
handlebar
I think he lives up around my area. I think he's on a ranch. Now, he may not still be here, but I know he lived up around here for a long time. People see Sam Elliott. Yeah.
He was
that guy was
1883.
Yeah. And he shows up in those random places too.
The man who killed Hitler and then Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy. Yeah, he's the only guy that can still pull off that mustache. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Kurt Russell also makes a good cowboy when he actually.
Kurt Russell pulled off a great cowboy in Tombstone, and
Val Kilmer, man. Kilmer was my favorite.
Kilmer.
Yeah.
I'll be your Huckleberry.
I'll be your Huckleberry.
Sam Elliott, Val Kilmer, and Kurt Russell. Oh, just absolutely fantastic.
Who was the other guy? Oh,
there was another guy.
That was Bill Paxton, right?
Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
Oh, oh yeah.
That's probably the only movie where it's all over, man. You didn't get that line.
Yeah, you didn't get to say it's all over.
I know. He was such a. I'm amazed at how many kids nowadays don't realize how many internet comments are from that movie, like Game Over and stuff. Like they don't. There's so many snide comments from aliens, especially aliens. That movie, Bill Paxton.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And that was very early in his career. Had he made any films before that? Or
I think he
did. He was in Terminator. Early on, he's one of the first people who gets killed by the Terminator. I think in Terminator 2.
Yeah, he's the actually only actor that's been killed by the Terminator, the Alien, and the Predator.
I think so.
He did all three. He actually pulled up.
That's awesome.
He was Cameron's right-hand man. So Bill Paxton, everything, he did weird science. And that's why I love him. He paid, what was his brother's name? He played his brother, which was, and Bill Paxton just had a way of hamming it up.
Oh, that's right.
It was
really funny.
It was what was his name? But I loved his brother in Weird Sciences.
Yeah,
and Bill Paxton when he died, that was probably one of the up there that was a loss. I was like, man, no, not Bill Paxton. And no matter, he actually starred in this Edge of Tomorrow movie with Tom Cruise. He was a drill sergeant, and he was still funny. I mean, every time that guy would pop up, I would just love Bill Paxton.
Yeah, you just start laughing. Yeah, very very likable.
Apparently, I heard he's was the consummate gentleman in the movie. He's a very nice man.
I heard the same thing as well. Yeah. So back to the Western ideas here. Let's talk about. We've covered a lot of the popular culture influence of Westerns. What comic books have you seen lately that reflect title? I'll start by saying I saw that Dynamite actually has not only Zorro but the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly franchise. And Zorro's kind of an odd Western because I still consider it a Western.
It's a pre-Western really because they were still using muzzle loaders.
Right. It was. I think it actually doesn't take place like not revolutionary times, but just before the. I know it's like it's not. Is it in the Old West?
Just pre or post Victoria.
It's pre six-cylinder revolvers.
Okay.
Like I said, they still use the
still muzzle loaders and so on.
Yeah.
So the themes are the same. The sort of masked Avenger. I saw the Lone Ranger is still a title.
Yeah.
And you think about this and you think, well, it still has a niche market. What type of comic books? Because think about it. the Magnificent Seven is basically the Seven Samurai, right?
Mhm.
And it's interpreted our way. Star Wars, the Hidden Fortress.
Yeah.
A lot of people consider Episode 4, Star Wars to be a type of space western as well.
Image
Although
has
that's
got a current.
stretching it.
Image has got a current comic western. I haven't read it, but I would like to. It's called That Texas Blood.
I saw that when I was in my research, but I haven't read it.
There's two comics I read. There's one I got from a company called TKO Comics called, I think it's Seven Deadly Sins.
Okay.
And that was an old Western comic. And then there's one I've been getting off Kickstarter, and I think I need to get the last issue called Lead City. And that was
Lead City, that sounds cool.
And it was like this guy comes upon this town, and apparently there's this contest that people come into town for, and there's like an abandoned town up the hill. And then it's just like it's a big shootout, last man standing wins, and he gets caught up in the, he has to like get some medicine, he gets caught up in the thing. But I think, that's definitely cool. I like Old West comics. And I think if they're done, especially if they have unique art styles, I think it'd be really done well.
Well, then you have to round up Mobius's Blueberry.
Oh yeah,
Just sit and look at it.
Oh yeah, I have it in a graphic novel form, and I just sit there and stare at the art. I forget about the story. I'm just.
It's funny.
It's just a drill over for artists. Yeah.
Speaking of old westerns, and this is kind of, at first, not really the Old West, but that new movie Prey did a good job because it was the Comanche during that.
I
haven't seen it, but I've heard a lot of good things about it.
So that was really well done.
Is that like 1700s?
1700s, right? So I mean, So I mean, it's going into. I mean, we're like what? Almost a century away, because I think the Old West.
I love that just pre-colonial America period.
It was perfect, and it was one of those. I mean, even when they did the Predator,
revolutionary.
The second movie, they basically said the Predators hunt through time. Have been hunting this for years, and so we're like, well, why don't we see movies? And they finally did one, and so I'm like, after so many years, you finally got the point. Like, just go make a Predator movie at like a different time period, and they did. And it just worked like a charm. It was really well done.
I heard there was a good crossover with the pistol.
There is, and the pistol. Okay, yeah. So I think I like westerns, and I've always liked the idea of like haunted westerns or like sci-fi of that sort of.
I do too.
Oh, you would like this.
Well, I think that at one point or another,
Join the Future. Oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah,
that really looks cool, man.
Aftershock.
I think at some point in time, almost every culture has had some form of cowboys. I mean, they're in Venezuela, it's the boleros, and in the high steppes, it's the Russian Cossacks. Every culture has at some point in time has had their form of cowboys.
One might argue
the Ronin, the samurai and stuff.
The Ronin, the samurai, and one could even argue that Western Europe, the knights.
The knights,
especially medieval times, were a form of cowboys.
Because basically you have mounted warriors on horses that are either hired by a warlord or protecting their own land, or by the church or what have you, and they're all the reason the word cowboy came along is because of protecting ranches and so on, and they have herd cows and
Well, it was originally a term of derision. It was.
Yes, it was.
Cowboy were the bad
cowpoke.
guys.
Cowpoke.
The cowboys.
That's what I miss about Puerto Rico, though, because they would call you caballero, which literally means cowboy.
That's
like, I'll take that.
That's right.
So it's funny how it's now it's become such a synonymous. It's funny too how I noticed we moved decades, and we've always liked the rebels, and especially Americans. We moved from the pirates, and after we got done with the pirates, we went to the cowboys. Yeah. Like every decade has this. I mean, in the 20s, you have the gangsters. We've always enamored with the bad guy, especially America. That's always that rebel.
Jesse James.
That was our beginning, though. We were the only country built on distrust of government, and they said, "Well, you're using British ships. You have to give us our due." So we're like, "All right, we'll make our own." And we just didn't tell them. We'll do it our way.
Yeah.
We were the upstarts, definitely.
And that's
funny.
That theme.
Look where it got us.
I know.
I think
still on top, baby.
That theme still runs deep with fans of comic books because obviously being a comic book fan kind of puts you in a certain category with most people. because before it became mainstream, it was kind of you were the comic nerd, you were the outcast, you weren't the cool kids, right? And even though it's more mainstream now, there's still that idea that you're sort of the underdog, you're sort of the outcast if you like comics and really read them, because they're separated from the movie fans.
It was always
in a
the
way.
underdog, the rebel. I'm a big fan of Conan, and Conan could be argued, barbarians like that could be argued to be cowboys. Same sort of vein, the loner.
The loner,
of course,
right?
That's not where barbarians came from. Barbarians came from the idea. It was like, I think it was Germanic for basically, derisive of other cultures.
Right.
But barbarians have become more like the fantasy version of like the gunslinger or whatever. I mean,
comes into town, cleans things up.
Stuff like that. Spawn has was it the gunslinger Spawn? So he has the cowboy.
Yeah, that's
superhero
right.
that he's. I haven't read it, but it looks cool.
Yeah. It looks kind of cool, right?
Yeah, and that's war
and that's the whole point with Spawn, is just to be cool, just to look cool.
Yeah,
there's been throwbacks in Marvel and DC for popular characters, throwing them back into cowboy times. There was Steve Rogers and Tony Stark were thrown back in cowboy time.
Yeah,
wasn't there a Batman one too?
I think there was.
Yeah,
Gotham by Gaslight.
Yeah. Gotham by Gaslight was more
Gotham by Gaslight.
Yeah.
But there was still that retro facade placed over a current character. I think that without the retro facade, you could look at archetypes and we could probably pick out some lone gunslinger cowboys that are in sci-fi stories. Like the X-Men is rife with them. I mean, look at Logan.
Yeah.
I mean,
the one series I like. Oh, go ahead. Keep talking.
No, I was just to say, Logan to me is a cowboy in his own way.
Mm-hmm.
He always has been.
That wandering anti-hero.
He's the gunslinger. Yeah,
the
he's
gunslinger
the gun for hire.
Who does the gun for hire. He's done a lot of bad things, and the best thing he's at is killing, and he doesn't really like that too much. Yeah. So
Marvel's
that's a character. I'm trying to think of the same thing for DC, and nobody really comes to mind.
Who did Nick Cage play? Ghost Rider or something?
Ghost Rider.
That's Marvel, but
that's
Jonah
Marvel,
Hex.
Jonah Hex. I was going to say Jonah Hex.
Which they made a movie with. That's got Megan Fox in it, right?
Yeah.
That's DC. Right. Jonah Hex is DC.
Yeah.
Now, who else is over at Marvel? Ghost Rider, is that a sort of spirit of vengeance?
That started as a Western.
It did.
Okay.
Yeah, Rob's right.
In the movie at the end, didn't he ride off with Sam Elliott on a flaming horse? And he was
that was an all, because the original Ghost Rider, because I was like that character, I think Rob knows, dressed in all white with like a white hat and stuff. So he looked like a ghost.
Like a ghost.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, Marvel, and he put phosphorus or something that glowed in the night
Marvel
on his
bought him
costume
in the 70s or something. And of course, cowboys were going out, but like, what's the equivalent to the new cowboy in America? Well, Easy Rider was popular.
Yeah.
And Evel Knievel. So boom, there you go.
Boom. Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you really look at it back then, the Easy Rider, the bikers were kind of like the outlaw cowboys. I don't know so much anymore. But
Sons of Anarchy picked that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Zorro.
They were just bad guys.
Zorro. Yeah.
Did they do a Zorro comic?
They made a Zorro. There is a Zorro comic. Dynamite has the most that I've seen that where they feature them. They really brought up. They have Zorro. They have Lone Ranger. They have. They actually have the good, the bad, and the ugly as a title. It's interesting to see. They're not super popular, but is that because the genre is going away? What do you guys think? Is it going away, or is it about to come back?
I think it's coming back. For one thing, I think the TV show Yellowstone really kicked it off in TV.
Yeah.
Because now there's 3 westerns in development. There's Walker Independence, and at least 2 other ones.
Bass Reeves.
That are going to be,
which is 1883.
That was so
good.
A spin-off
right.
of Yellowstone. But
Yes.
they're doing
I highly
Bass
recommend
Reeves. We've talked about Bass Reeves before, haven't we? About he was a black man, a runaway slave, who became a marshal in the Indian territories.
Mm-hmm.
And some people say he was the prototype of the Lone Ranger, although there's really no association whatsoever.
Right.
It's just crazy.
I was
Crazy
just
some of the
looking
stuff
at
he did.
at the TV guide today of the upcoming new series, and I saw at least 2 new series that are coming. One of them is Walker Independence, and I can't remember the other one.
And in the last decade, there's been some really, really good high production movies and Deadwood.
And that's what it takes. That's what it takes to bring something like that back.
Yeah.
Westworld, heavy Western, Hell on Wheels.
Yes.
Justified. That guy was pretty much a cowboy.
Justified, yeah.
The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. If you haven't seen The Ballad of Buster Scruggs,
I've heard of it.
It's a series of short films on Netflix. Okay. And it's got the guy, Tim Blake Nelson from Oh Brother Where Art Thou. He's also in Old Henry. That's a more recent one that was pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to mini modern. I'm always like, I did like, which was a modern Western, but it was a very different one. It was that one that starred Benedict Cumberbatch.
Recently, where he played a bad guy, essentially.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I can't think of the name of it either.
Something the night or whatever, and it was one of those kind of. I still have questions about that movie, which I really liked. And it had a what's her name from Spider-Man, the one he played in the original one with Tobey Maguire. He played.
Kirsten Dunst.
Mary Jane. Yeah, she was in it. Yeah, and that was a Western, but not like no gunslinging or whatever. It was more of a straight up.
Like I like Django Unchained.
Yeah.
I like that one.
There's plenty in production now, and there's plenty of popularity. Do we have at Silverline any Westerns in development? Does anyone know? Or there's some secret stuff happening behind the scenes?
I could pump out a story in a week.
Yeah, right.
It's the one genre I haven't drawn in comic. It's one of the genres in comics I have not drawn yet.
Oh wow!
Let's do it.
We need
to, I'd love
to
make a Western. Well, it wasn't a comic book. It was like a kid's book, but it was a kid's book done for adults. So it was like 60 pages, and it was about a cowboy that lost his soul in a poker game to death, and he had to go smash his tombstone to get his soul back. So he fought werewolves and like a Frankenstein monster, and that was my take. And I did it a long time ago. It's still complete. I mean, I'd still like to put it together, but it reads the way I wrote it like in a certain stanza, so almost like rhyming poetry in a way. And so very different. That was the one Jim Valentino looked at, and he really liked it. He's like I wouldn't know how to sell this because it's so different. He's like, but if I saw it, I'd buy it. And I'm like, best compliment I got. Still got it. I just got to put it together.
Roland says, if it was a secret, shouldn't it stay that way? We can always talk around something.
We can hint about it to kind of build up interest.
Wasn't Roland supposed to be a secret?
We don't know for sure whether there is anything like that happening, do we?
Don't you want to take Roland's little cartoon face there and put a cigar and hat on him?
Yeah.
The way he's got that look.
Put it back.
Put it back. We got a little hat and cigar on for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. No. I think that would make a great genre. If you guys come up with a Western, I'm definitely going to draw a cover for it. Just holler at me. I'd love to do that. That would be fantastic. So, Westerns that you'd like to see as comic books. We're going to start with Barb.
I used to watch a cowboy show in 2000 and 2001, I think it was. It was a TV version of The Magnificent Seven. It had Michael Biehn, it had Eric Close, Ron Perlman. And I loved that show. And it had all the guys were good looking. And
Ron
that's
Perlman?
all it takes for me. I like Ron Perlman too. He wasn't quite as up there with Michael Biehn.
He's not your standard good-looking guy.
No, he's more Hellboy. But I loved Eric Close in that, and I would love to see that come back as a comic book.
Do you like team? So you like the Silverado sort of idea, that the theme? Okay.
In fact, I'm actually Twitter friends with one of the stars on that, and I suggested that, and he said, "Well, I'm in." I would gladly.
I'm not
volunteering to add it.
Besides, you don't really want me to add stuff to your face, Roland, because that's a dangerous territory for you.
Wow. Wow.
Ooh.
I know.
I can do it, but I'm not cheap.
I'm not. That's right. We don't come cheap.
So, Rob, what about you? What would you like to see? Maybe something from the past, something from the recent past.
I would love to do Bonanza as a comic. I would. I would love to do that as a comic book.
Got to be better than
I really would. Yeah. I mean, but a modern version.
Yes.
A modern version.
The interiors of these are not nearly as nice as the photo on the front.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, they were money makers. They were,
they were cranking them out. What is it about Bonanza that was so appealing, do you think? Rob, tell us what was appealing to you about it.
I liked the whole concept where it was set, where it was this family that they were self-made. The Ponderosa was bigger than Rhode Island. The land area of the Ponderosa was actually bigger than Rhode Island. Where it's set is beautiful country, and the fact that they were very honorable and very good people. That's what I liked about it. That was. And that whole family dynamic that you had going on.
The brothers were
I think could be very well done.
Different from each other. 3 different mothers.
Yeah, well, and the reason the whole reason that they did it that way is they had to hire, different actors to play the sons. So each one had a different mother, which actually added a whole different layer of storytelling. Yes.
Roland says, Rob has already said he, quote, talk to me, unquote, after he's finished the graphic novel he's working on with Roland.
Yeah.
So,
which is, I'm slowly working on it. This page is still coming out. But I definitely want to do more comic book work now that I have a publisher who's interested in what I'm doing.
That's awesome. Well, you bring up family dynamics. You bring up brothers.
Yes.
How they interrelate with each other. And Barb brought up something that I think made it an enduring show, was that you saw the complications of family interaction, parent and child, interaction, the competitive nature of brothers, the different personalities, and how each wanted to solve problems in a different way. So again, you throw that in a cowboy environment, and you got some gunslinging and some, well,
not quite that savvy. I like the conflict between the brothers because Adam was always the know-it-all, and Little Joe was always the hothead, and Haas was always the mediator between the two. He was
trying to keep everything under control.
He was the one. He was always Little Joe was always getting him in trouble.
Yep. The new scheme.
Putting him in trouble.
Yeah.
So
chickens.
It was problem solving in that Western environment. Now, for comics, you need some pretty heavy visuals, and it would be, like you said, Rob, a beautiful environment, a setting.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the landscape.
Lake Tahoe.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have sweeping views all the time.
Those evergreen trees, the Ponderosa pines.
Yeah,
and plus there's also mountains in the area, and it just a lot of
prairies,
a lot of really
forests,
good stuff
mountains,
about
rivers.
Westerns is in there. Indians, everything's there. Yeah,
a lot of spectacular viewing, and just elaborate spectacles is the word I'm looking for. Something strong and powerful, backdrops, and again, with the comic book, you basically want to just blow people away with the visuals, and that has every element inside of it.
Exactly.
That concept,
exactly.
Bonanza.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. I don't know who has the rights to it, but
probably
they tried to do a reboot of the whole story called Ponderosa. On I believe it was some sort of Christian network that had done it, and
they hired. Didn't they hire Michael Landon's son for that?
I don't know who was involved with it. I never saw any of it because it wasn't anything that I had access to. But I read about it. I think it lasted 2 or 3 seasons.
Oh, okay.
And it was about when they first moved to the Ponderosa. Little Joe's mother was still alive at the beginning. I don't know if she died during the early on or not, but little Joe would have been a little boy. Haas would have been like in high school maybe, or in junior high. So it was the whole different dynamic. Ben was of course a lot younger, and the Ponderosa, the house hadn't been built yet. So
who I always felt sorry with on that show? Poor Hop Sing. He had to take care of 4 men.
Yeah,
he did all the cooking and the cleaning, and he was. I mean, back then they made him the typical Chinaman, and the Indians were also very stereotypical.
He did have a couple of stories though that played up his Chinese heritage, but most of the time, really early on, he was a caricature, definitely.
Yes.
Later on, he got better.
Which brings to mind the Eastern Western that was also one of my favorites was Kung Fu.
Oh, absolutely.
And that put a different spin on the Western. Aaron, you would have loved that had you grown up in that era.
I've seen a little bit here and there of it. Yeah.
You would have loved that because they blended ancient Chinese culture in a very bigoted, environment of the West where Chinese people were just, completely mistreated in that era.
Even worse, he was half Chinese. He wasn't even
that made him worse. Nobody liked
it worse for him. Yeah,
because they didn't want to hire an actual Chinese person back then to portray. They had to hire an American.
Bruce Lee was supposed to get the role. There's a lot of lore about what happened there.
He's as far as I know, he created Kung Fu, and it was his baby.
It was, and
the company took it and gave it to the other guy. And that's I mean, I like Kung Fu, but there's a part of me like I don't know, it'd be a hard time watching it knowing that, because I mean, as a creator, that would be hard for me to swallow.
That unfortunately happens a lot in creative endeavors.
It does. Yeah, unfortunately. But I would always watch it just thinking, well, how much better would this be if Bruce Lee was in it? I mean, that would be my whole. I wouldn't be able to not see
Carradine
did with that one.
He did a good job with the character. He did an excellent job with the character. But
it wasn't his fault. I mean, he would
do it.
Right. I mean, obviously, Carradine had no ill will towards Bruce Lee. It was a job. They hired him. I mean, I don't think there was anything between them. I always liked them in Kill Bill. The movie.
Yeah, it's an interesting character. But then let's take it a little further toward the grittier nature. What kind of comics or entertainment would you like to see, Aaron? If you were going to write or draw or both a comic book in the West, you would blend like maybe monsters in it or make it kind of supernatural.
That would probably be more my speed, a supernatural Western or a horror Western. I would like to. That's what that Western book was about. But I've always liked that. But I think Westerns actually work better in comics if the art is more stylized than realistic. I don't know. There's something about it. I think it's kind of cool because I think a lot of Old West art, if it's stylized, can look really cool. If you do. And so I've always really liked that exaggerated poses and faces in the Old West.
Have you heard of the Call of Cthulhu game? Tabletop game?
Yeah.
There's a Western.
Is there a Western version of it?
Yeah. It's awesome.
That would be cool. Aaron, if you ever get a chance on YouTube or Hulu or something.
Oh, the Wild Wild West,
yeah. There's an opening sequence that all the seasons had where it was animated, the titles.
Yeah.
And the scratchy, sort of loose nature of that. I always thought that would make a really good comic style, the style of those opening titles, because it's just enough there to give you the imagery. It's kind of got almost scratchier than the modern artist equivalent would almost be Jock, his art.
I think I know his art. It sounds familiar.
Yeah. Bill Sienkiewicz used to do more expressive, scratchier, looser art.
Because I remember... go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was done.
Oh, I was just saying a lot of the Old West comics I would see would veer more towards the realistic, and it wasn't. So I started seeing people exaggerate Old Westerns here and there, like the trench coats and the hats and stuff. That I'm like, okay, this is kind of. They started blending it almost a little more with Grindhouse style. of
Yeah.
art,
Yeah.
and I thought that I thought, okay, now you're on to something. This is kind of cool. Because I felt like, realistic, yeah, sure, it's cool, but it's kind of boring. And so I don't know. But then again, I like exaggerated art. I just think exaggerated art in Old West comics just fits well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Check out Blueberry though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Mobius, he's in a classic.
Oh, man.
Mobius, man.
Well, that's kind of stylized.
Yeah, it is.
Very much
Mobius
so.
has always been very
Here-
stylized.
Here's a little known fact: Cowboys didn't actually wear most of the time. Didn't wear cowboy hats.
Yeah.
They wore derbies or sombreros or beaver skin hats, but cowboy hats came along later.
Mhm.
The people think, oh, they wore the dusters and the cowboy hats.
No, that's
not
a lot of
really.
Hollywood,
That's a
yeah.
Hollywood stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would go with whatever's practical.
There were 10-gallon hats occasionally, like Haas used to wear.
Right.
But
Oh
like,
yeah.
Well, the old idea that like the showdown in the street with the quick draw, that was a Hollywood event. That was never.
Yeah.
That
You wouldn't let
didn't
yourself
happen
be
very
that
often.
open.
Yeah, that didn't.
I mean, it's a
happen
cool
very
idea, but I mean, it's
It's a trope.
it's a trope. Yeah.
It's a storytelling trope.
I know Ken Burns. He did a series on the Old West. I've yet to watch.
Oh
it.
yeah, his stuff's good.
Yeah.
Civil War
I
one
know.
is amazing.
Yeah, I've seen that
Aaron,
a few times, twice.
You guys are familiar with the TV series 24, right? From a while back, right? The first, the idea of 24 was that you were seeing it unfold in real time, hour by hour, right? That was the gimmick. One of the most classic Westerns, High Noon, is actually a template of that. High Noon takes place in real time. It's the same day. It's leading up to noon. And the leading character has just gotten married, and he's being encouraged by the upstanding members of the town to leave town. Look, you're not a lawman anymore, because Gary Cooper was reaching that age of retirement. You're not a lawman anymore. These bad guys just got out of prison that you put there. They're coming to kill you. We know it. We know they're released. They're on the way. You just leave town, live happily ever after. And he almost does. But at the end, he turns back to protect the town because he knows they're just going to come in and just tear the place up and hurt everybody that he cared about in the town, and he couldn't leave. So they have the showdown, But what was nice about it was that a comic book using that level of real time would build up a lot of tension. Because I remember watching that movie and first started watching it as a kid. I'm going, this is an old movie. It's going to be boring. I'm not going to, and I was glued to it because of that very fact. Was we were counting down in
that's
real
a storytelling.
time.
Yeah, that's a storytelling trope.
It's funny because I watched the first
time bomb. Yeah,
the first season of 24, and it got a little. I watched it with my mother because she likes that kind of stuff, and it got a little too much. I mean, by the end, we're like, I understand what they're going for, but there's no way all of that took place in 24 hours.
Right.
Just no way. But it's a cool concept. Yeah.
Right.
Roland says they did wear bandanas all the time, though. Wore them like bandits to keep the dust out of their mouths and nose. And they did, but they weren't the short little bandanas that we see. They were massive pieces of
banditos.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan.
Hi, Ryan. How are you? He said, Barb, what's up?
Yep.
And then Westerns and comics can work if you create something like a Longmire or Justified.
That would work.
Longmire was excellent.
I got into Longmire until they started getting into the political stuff, and I had to let it go at that point. I didn't
want to go there. 310 to Yuma remake turns 15 next month.
Wow.
That's impossible.
We will celebrate.
That was like 2 years ago.
Yeah. That was
I feel old.
the guy from Gladiator.
Russell Crowe.
Yes.
Russell Crowe.
And Batman. Russell Crowe versus Batman.
Yeah, the Batman guy.
Yep.
Yeah, I was a good
Christian Bale. Yeah.
Except he gets killed partway through. I'm putting spoilers out here now, but yeah.
Well, I think 310 the Yuma, wasn't that a remake of an old film?
Yeah,
yes,
it was.
It was a short story by, and I'm blanking on his name. The guy that
old age sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
310
stuff gets filed away back in the back. It's so much dust you can't get to it.
I'll sit up in the middle of the bed tonight and go, "Hey, what's the so and so?"
Yeah. But he also wrote the Black Dahlia thing. And his family was actually involved in the whole Black Dahlia thing, but I can't think of the
Is that
writer's
right?
name. Yeah,
Hawk, Ethan Hawke.
No.
Elmore Leonard.
Elmore Leonard. Yes, thank you.
I had to look it up.
Leonard.
Yep.
Yes,
He Googled it.
Mm-hmm. I did indeed.
Hey,
I did.
That's my memory.
That's what the internet's for, right?
That's what it's
right.
for.
Yep.
I certainly did. The original film was in 1957 with Glenn Ford and Van Heflin. So
and Christian Bale. Christian Bale played
Christian Bale and Russell Crowe did the remake.
Yeah, they've done a lot of remakes of westerns. I mean, they did the Griffith. That was the Grifter, or they redid that one, which is a John Wayne. I'm surprised they've never done Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. Now maybe that's not possible because it was Redford, and it was Redford and Newman. I think it did that.
Mm-hmm. It was Redford and Newman. Yeah.
So it may not be possible to do that, but I've always been surprised.
They did a TV show that kind of riffed on it.
Yeah,
they did a TV show. Yeah. It was called Butch and Sundance: The Early Days.
Yeah,
do that well, but
it was
I know they
Smith
sometimes.
And Jones.
Yeah,
Alias Smith and Jones. Why I remember that, I don't know.
What was the Bruce Campbell western?
Bruce
I know
Campbell
what you're talking about.
Western,
It was a TV show. It was
Something Kid.
Oh God, what was
Bruce
that? Okay,
Campbell
no,
did a western.
It
was one of those
show.
weird.
Yeah,
well, it's Bruce Campbell, so you take it as
Frisco Kid.
Yeah,
Frisco County Jr.
Yeah,
yes.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was the show that always had it was the two main characters? It was hey Cisco, hey Pancho, let's ride.
Oh, you talking Chips?
That's Cisco Kid.
Chips, right?
That's Cisco Kid.
It's Cisco Kid. Okay.
Cisco Kid.
Cisco Kid.
Cisco Kid.
Yeah, both of them were Latinos.
Yes.
Latinos.
So
now that was
think about it. It was the show Chips, kind of like a modern day Old West. I mean, you got cops on bikes.
In some respects,
you can argue in some. I guess you got to remember watching all the time.
They were the Briscoe County.
Briscoe County Jr. Yep. So, what was it about that show that you guys liked so much? I like the fact that it was sci-fi and kind of spooky and weird.
Which one? The Briscoe?
Briscoe.
Yeah.
I never saw it. I knew of it, but I never saw
clueless.
No, it's good. I don't know. I haven't seen it in like a long time, so I don't know if it holds up to the test of time. But I remember it being very funny.
What'd you like about 310 to Yuma, Rob? Tell us a little bit about why is that a compelling story?
Well, you got Russell Crowe's character who's constantly trying to escape and keeps getting caught, and escapes and he gets caught. He escapes and he gets caught, and it's that back and forth, and there's the whole thing running through, and then you get to the end of the film, and I this is a spoiler for folks, so if you haven't seen the film, put your fingers in your ears. But at the end of the movie, he does the right thing. He essentially allows himself to get turned in for the reward, because that's what the Christian Bale's son. Christian Bale gets killed, and his son has to take in Russell Crowe to get the reward. Christian Bale has been hired to take this guy in, and his son takes it over. So that's this whole story about them. The bad guys, Russell Crowe's
helping
guys,
his son,
trying to get him, and he actually helps the son, and finally gets turned into the cops, and then escapes at the last second, so that the kid can get the reward, but yet he still leaves. He actually shoots his own henchman at one point, so that he can get turned in.
Yeah, I do remember that.
So, what a great little twist at the end.
That's a good twist.
Yeah,
that's a good twist.
It's worth, and even me telling it, it's still worth watching. Even if you know all this, you can still watch the film and go, "Wow, what a great story!"
That's a good recommendation.
Yeah, I enjoyed the heck out of it.
What about Butch and Sundance? Why do you guys think, aside from the obvious, charisma of the two leading actors, you got Paul Newman and Robert Redford?
But it was the chemistry those two had.
Yeah,
was that what sold it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's why certain movies can't be remade. I mean, I remember for a while I think they wanted to remake Escape from New York, which is you could argue is a sci-fi version of a Western.
It's a Western.
I don't think that can be done either. No.
You can't take Kurt Russell out of that. And Kurt Russell even said that. He's like, no, he would said I'd be angry if you remade that because him and Carpenter made that character.
Yeah, they invented that.
And Carpenter always said Snake Plissken was a future version of a gunslinger. That was his whole intention behind that.
Oh yeah, it made sense if you look at it that way. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, even in the second movie, which I know a lot of people don't like the second one as much, but I liked. I thought it was stupid and fun. But he has he has a trench coat and his 2 pistols and stuff. Very much the gunslinger. I mean, you can tell they were basically doing it as sort of Clint Eastwood type character in the future.
He is clearly doing Clint Eastwood in the first one when he's being given his mission. Aaron, you remember the scene? And he's at the desk, and Lee Van Cleef is like, the president's plane just went down in New York City. And he just looks back and goes, president of what?
Yeah.
Which I always thought was hilarious. It's just delivering these lines like Eastwood would deliver them.
Yeah.
It's just so perfect.
Kurt Russell is always so good at that.
Yeah, he's good at everything. He was a child star. He was one of those early like Disney actors.
He was in the TV show, the Disney TV show with the kids.
Mouseketeers and all that.
Yeah.
And so he was so comfortable in front of the camera that by the time he was playing tough guys, it was old hat to him. He'd been in front of the camera his whole life. Go ahead, Aaron.
I don't remember this. Me and my mom watched a documentary a few years ago about Kurt Russell on the baseball team in Portland, Oregon, the city across from me. Because Kurt Russell always wanted to be a pro baseball player. That's always been his dream. He was never able to do that, pursue that. And so he got a minor league baseball team, and I had to look it up. But apparently in the late 70s or whatever, and I was just like, Kurt Russell on the baseball team in my city? Like, what? And apparently they were just like these wild, like the events and the games, like these wild sort of crazy baseball games where everyone would go crazy and the fans are crazy. And I have to look up, but they made like an hour documentary that interviewed Kurt Russell about, I own the team. And I'm just like, what? Okay. Like across the river from me? I mean, Portland's literally across the river. It's, a few, maybe 30 minutes into, I had no idea, but I know Kurt Russell has always loved baseball. He's always wanted to. In fact, he got into acting, I think, because of his family, but it was never his first love. He just was good at it. I mean, he came from an acting family, but it was never something he wanted to do. I do know that.
Well, he's certainly good at it because he played some of the more iconic leading characters.
Well, him and John Carpenter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, him and John Carpenter made, Big Trouble in Little China. I watched the other day.
Oh, yeah.
So many movies that he has made.
Fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just great. When I was recently watching Shang-Chi, I just got around to watching it. I really enjoyed it. All I could think of was, imagine if that had the effects to do that and do Big Trouble in Little China. It would have been hilarious and so much more realistic. But, it was a perfectly timed sleeper cult classic.
It was
people
funny.
Didn't get it, but it was funny.
It was funny. Apparently, I read, and I didn't know this, John Carpenter's original idea for Big Trouble in Little China was to set in like the Old West or Old China. It was supposed to be a historical film, and I think like he didn't have the money for it or whatever, so they just turned it into this modern day film, which I think was just way for the better. I mean, that was just I thought so too. Yeah, a lot of people. It is very one of those movies. Like when you try to explain it, I'm like, I don't know. You just have to see it. It's just weird. It's weird,
very odd.
It is, but it's great. So
odd, but in a good way. And there's some quotables. Some quotables out of that too.
There are so many quotables. Kurt Russell was so. Apparently, the scene I was reading where he got the lipstick on him. Do you remember this when he came out of the elevator? That was totally ad lib. That was not supposed to happen. Apparently, he kissed. I can't remember the actress's name.
Can't remember
she started Sex in the City.
Yeah.
And
Kim Cattrall.
And he got this lipstick all over instead of coming out and doing his lines. And apparently everyone just lost it. And they were just like, that's just perfect. But that was completely a mistake. That now whether or not that was the actual scene, they made a mistake in. But yeah, I'm always fascinated by when people do little things like that in movies. And it's like, no, it was an accident, but it would just work so well.
You could do a whole show like this on those sorts of scenes.
And it's funny too, because even in that movie, Kurt Russell was a truck driver, but he was more that old Western cowboy sort of character.
Absolutely, as cowboy.
Yeah.
And he's played that character a lot, which makes the Tombstone role absolutely perfect.
All the more better and stuff. Yeah,
because we'd seen him do this for so many years, and he'd played that sort of character.
If I'm not mistaken, I think when he was a kid, I think he actually started a few of the Disney Western sort of shows or whatever. I think he did as a kid.
Well, Old Yeller, which is set in the Western era.
Wait a minute, was he actually in Old Yeller? No, it's been years since I've seen that.
I thought he was in
Russell?
I'm
sure you're right. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, I'm not sure, but I'm thinking he was in Old Yeller.
But
well, in the old 1957 drama, no, it's not. It's not him. That would be way ahead of his
co-stars. It was one of his co-stars in The Musketeers, though, I believe.
Right. Yeah, it was. But a famous actor who was in a follow-up film later in the 50s, Fess Parker, who ended up playing both Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone, which are more frontier than they are Western, but they have Western flavor to them, definitely. This one's
Brent.
good. Roland says strongest man in the world. Hey, Brent. How are you?
No, it's not me. I'm not that strong.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
Now. There, and apparently you were a big Disney kids teen actor as well. So look
well
at that.
Done.
Very well done. Hey, Brent, what's your favorite Western, and what Western would you like to see done as a comic? Do you have one? Do you have a favorite Western?
Oh, geesh.
We've been having fun just talking around not just the archetypes and why they were popular, and you know how in television in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, but mainly 50s and 60s, what a dominant part of our pop culture and the entertainment world that Westerns were. And we were just talking about what we'd like to see either from that era or from current films that would make a good comic book. You know?
Well, I mean, even not to interrupt Brent here, but like the Ultimate Lawman. I mean, I'm a huge Judge Dredd fan, and that guy's the Ultimate.
That's a Western.
Lawman. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's the sheriff.
Yeah.
Does Serenity count as a Western?
Oh yeah,
I think it does.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I think it does.
Yeah.
Okay, then there you go.
There you go.
I love that.
Aaron, Aaron, have you seen Outlaw Star?
Yeah, I saw. I've seen parts of it, but yeah, I know of it. Yeah,
I'd call that a Western. That, and I think Cowboy Bebop is a good.
Yeah, Cowboy Bebop really hit on that Western theme or whatever. Almost, and it's funny because they almost didn't wear a lot of Western aesthetics, but the mood and tone of that was very much in that style. Yeah,
very Western with like a jazz soundtrack.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
It's Cowboy Bebop. Yeah, it's definitely a unique blend. It's a Western. It's almost like a 20s gangster Western space film mixed together.
It's another one you can't remake.
No, they tried with TV and it just no.
Can't be
done. Got 2 episodes in, like I was like, nah, not happening.
Yeah.
There's certain things that I would imagine Westerns have this. There's certain qualities that can only be captured in one way. Usually, comic, animation, film. Sometimes you can't cross-pollinate between those deliveries. They can only exist in that one format. I think that something like Cowboy Bebop falls into that category. It exists better as it is.
Mm-hmm.
As an anime.
So.
What was the one? Have you ever seen V is for Vampire? No, not Vampire Hunter D. There's another one with a girl in the lead, and her name is she's a vampire hunter. Talk to Blood. That's it. Blood.
Vampire Hunter.
You seen that one? They did a live version of that. It didn't quite have the same flair to it, simply because there's something about the abstraction of animating the concepts that make them more real in a way. Your approach to art does that a lot, Aaron. It's caricatured, but in a way, there's a purity to that caricature.
That's what I've always liked about that type of abstract art. I've always liked comic art and art that exaggerates or pushes art in that, because I mean, making it realistic is cool that you can do that, but to make it something unique that no one's ever seen before, something I get more into. Because I mean, Joe Mad is one of those characters, especially like Battle Chasers and stuff. I'd never seen stuff like that, so very, very invigorating for me. But there are a lot of people who just love realism. I've always been the guy of like, but then I grew up with the Image guys, and they were all exaggerated, especially McFarlane. He was all about pushing out exaggeration. So
and even the other Image guys, you could even argue that somebody like Jim Lee, some people might call him realistic, but he's more exaggerated. He's more stylized than you think.
Yeah.
You look at it with a glance and you go, "That's realistic." No, not really.
No. If you compare Jim Lee to Neil Adams, Jim Lee is much more stylized than Neil. Neil Adams is much more realism. Yeah,
but even Neil Adams is when you break it down, it's actually very stylized as well.
It is.
It's not as realistic as it feels. It feels realistic, but I think
it felt realistic because at the time comic book art was so simplified, and you see Neil Adams coming out in this detailed motion, like, wow, this is so realistic. But I mean, looking back on it, no,
it's exaggerated as well. And you know who made that? The artist that makes me feel like I'm doing complete caricature, Alex Ross.
Oh yeah,
because that's just photographic.
I love Alex Ross. I think does a good job. The thing that just kills me about Alex Ross is every time he does a picture, it's looking up. They're always looking up at the character, which I get the idea because superheroes are supposed to be bigger than things. You want to look up at them, but I'm like, dude, just you're always looking up.
The
like
camera.
Yeah, move it a little bit. You're just like every single image. I'm like, Alex, you're killing me, dude.
That little crank on the bottom of the tripod will raise up the camera.
Oh yeah. Superman is always.
No, I love his work, but I would agree with you. Too many of that whole
godlike vision.
Worm's eye view.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
And the other thing too that he does, and I don't think he means to do it intentionally, because it does a lot of models that were dressed in costume for him. But sometimes he draws the costumes into, like, I remember he drew a few Wonder Womans where like you could tell like the gold thing, like that looks more like gold tinsel or gold like than actual metal. Like there was something about it. I'm like, I think you're painting more of the costume. His stuff looks a little more like looking a little more like a costume than a suit of armor. Works with Superman and Batman a little bit. When you start seeing suits of armor, I'm like, okay, no, that's looking like it's taped onto the costume. There was a few of them I'm like, maybe you need to get the reference from the costume, but then look at actual metal, whatever, because it's not the same thing. Yeah.
Well, it's his style.
It's a futuristic.
It is. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. If you've ever looked at Boris Vallejo's art, he uses a lot of direct model reference, and because he's such an excellent draftsman, you can tell that it's a posed model. And in that realm, just personal taste for me, while I admire how awesome his skill set is, I prefer Frazetta because Frazetta is so expressive and loose and unrealistic. It feels
out of here instead of out of here.
It's alive. It has a life to it that's beyond just capturing the photorealism. And I think ultimately that's why, there are people who say, well, Dean, you draw realistic. I'm like, not really. It's a surrealism. It's anchored in reality.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even want to draw total realism. It's a lot of work. Number one.
It's funny because Boris Vallejo always reminded me a lot of like Bart Sears. Bart Sears was like Bubble Muscle Man, and I mean he knows his anatomy, but everything is so stiff. Like he just, it looks like he took his characters, like inflated him or something. And nothing against you, you're an amazing artist, but and Boris Vallejo, he's like, yes, it's very realistic, but it's too stiff, like you said. When you look at Frank Frazetta, I mean, you can see the energy and the tendons and the muscles. And
he's got, you got the gesture of the movement.
It has power. A friend of mine asked me early on in my career as a comic illustrator, a buddy of mine asked me, he said, well, that's not really accurate. I mean, did you use reference? And I said, well, it just wasn't powerful enough when I drew the actual from the reference. And he said, well, wouldn't you want it to be accurate? And I always told him, no. I said, I'd sacrifice the accuracy for power.
Yeah, power. The look cool, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was validated by Spawn, by McFarlane, who was really the master of that, taking that exaggeration to the point where it was really out there.
Anybody who admires Kirby,
that's what I was going to say.
You know,
absolutely,
his anatomy is all wrong.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Works,
yes,
but it works.
It works because it's strangely enough, if you're consistently wrong, it becomes your style. And as dumb as that sounds, it's true.
No,
it's like
you're absolutely right.
And I mean, if you look at Tom McFarlane, Tom McFarlane, he has muscles where I don't know, he's just adding muscles, and he said that. You know, it's like, look, you just add muscles, whatever. But it looks cool.
The 8-pack.
You know? Yeah, the 8-pack, yeah. But yeah, it's funny how that works, because it's like, well, this isn't accurate, and then if the guy sticks to it, you're like, okay, that's his style. You know?
It's a cartoon.
Yeah. I know.
It's a drawing.
Cool. Bigger than life.
World peace here. We're doing entertainment.
And I think it's important to do that, because I think the more you try to get realism and you screw up your anatomy, the more obvious it looks. I mean, nobody texts McFarlane like, McFarlane, your anatomy. This is like Rob Liefeld. Like, you know, I've come to appreciate. First, when I was learning to draw, I'm like, Rob Liefeld sucks. Now I'm starting to appreciate him a little more and more and more, because he just stuck to it. It's like, no, this is the way I draw my stuff. And with all the other comics I see exaggerating, Rob Liefeld's fine. I think he sometimes tries to do somewhat realistic anatomy and doesn't work. I'm like, no, stay to your stylization, because that works for you.
Yeah.
And he's never let that stuff get to him. All the naysayers, like, no. And I mean, he's one of those guys, like, I mean, people can run him down and run his art down. He's like, whatever, and just does it, makes money. So I'm like, props to the dude.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. He cashes the check and goes home.
Yeah,
and you got to give him props for that. I personally don't care for his style, but there's plenty of people out there that like it.
That just love him.
Who am I to say that's wrong? I can't.
And there's some stuff I've seen that I really like his, and some stuff that I haven't. It's a hit or big. I
think he has a lot of assistants too.
He's laughing all the way to the bank.
Oh yeah,
exactly. Yeah, he's.
You know, in that same vein, the same sort of image school of the mid '90s, one of my favorites is Mark Silvestri.
Yes,
Mark had an incredible, powerful style. It was like if you blended Frazetta with Jim Lee, right? And that's to me how Mark's work.
Mark was, strangely enough, and I would say this about Mark and Jim Lee, I thought were better in their earlier days. I think they've gotten more stiff and more sort of root. Like, I've seen Jim Lee pull out the same pose a few times, like, Jim, buddy, okay, we've seen that a few times. There was something about Mark Silverstein's gestural power in the old X-Men that was just fantastic. His stuff is still pretty good, but it's stiffened up, and that's what kind of bothered me. It's like, I love his looseness, and of course, it's not his fault. The more you draw that, it's just naturally going to come into your work.
Well, it's not only that; it's that you got to meet a deadline.
exactly.
And
I think that helped him. Actually,
Image is not about making deadlines. It's about drawing cool stuff.
Right.
And however long it takes to draw that cool stuff.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
And if you're doing gesture and that just to get it out on the page quick and move it on, that actually is strangely has a great freshness and power to it that you can't capture if you can't study it. It has to just flow.
Well, every artist has had the old I got to draw the layout sketch for my drawing, and you're never able to replicate. Like, you draw the layout sketch and it looks amazing, and now I got to redraw it again, and you never can.
You can't capture that.
You can't capture that again. It drives you nuts.
That's where scanning in a light box comes in real handy.
Just really get that.
What you do is you blow it up and you put it on a light box and you try to trace that sucker and get that power.
It gets close, but it's still
close, but it doesn't quite do it.
It's funny because it's hard to train new artists to go fast, because everybody wants to take their time and go slow. And I'm like, no, at first go fast. Just like attack that page like it insulted your mother, right? Or something. But just like, attack it, go for it, and you'll get that out. Yeah. But it's hard. They don't want to do that. They want to take their time. I'm like, no, just go for it. Start moving.
Less is more. A lot of times, less is more.
Mm-hmm. That's something I'm learning.
Your instincts will take you the right place if you let.
Yeah.
If you've practiced enough, there's a point at which your instincts will take you the right way.
Oh, it's funny because people have been asking me now, and I'm sure they've asked you, like, so how do you draw? What do you do? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm usually thinking about other stuff where I'm doing it. Or, it's like, I'm usually, it's so rote anymore. I'm just usually like,
I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just like, channeling what's
I don't even work
your
here.
Subconscious, let your subconscious take over. It's like any kind of storytelling. When I'm reading a script, I'm seeing the movie in my head. You know, and then when I actually do the thumbnails, I freeze the scene and move the camera to the most interesting pose I can get.
When I'm writing, I do that.
Moment.
You know, good movies are good training for comic book artists.
I think
absolutely
throw that out there.
I point people that way when they ask me how to learn how to tell stories.
Really good movies. You know,
strangely enough, another place to get good strange, especially for poses and action, is video games. I used to get a lot of my poses and stuff from video games because they would repeat the action over and over again, and they repeat the environments. That's what got me into drawing and liking to draw environments, because I realized when I played video games, it wasn't about the characters, more about the environment, the world you're building. It started getting me interested in exploring these worlds, and I'm like, well, I'm going to put that in my own drawings as much as I can, and that's when I started getting more interested.
If you have the time to think about what is in this room, you're the set decorator.
Right.
For this scene, what would be there? It's not necessarily described in the script, but it tells you where you are. Okay, well, what would be there? You know,
and you can have fun doing it. I mean, you can add history to places and rooms and stuff. Yeah, it's fun. I tell artists, like, I know it's boring, but add history, like why this tree is there, or why this clock is there, and then just
think it through. Why is that there? What? How did it get there?
Yeah. And that's
how did we get here from Westerns and comics? I don't know, but it was an interesting.
Aaron and I always kind of head this way. I think.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting journey. I mean, because you have to come about. You know, how would you envision these worlds? We were doing Westerns. You had already mentioned that Aaron had that looser is better than super realism, and I think there's something to be said for that, because the Western idea is so iconic. So you want to loosen up and have fun with it. And even the stories, I like the fact that people are blending genres with Westerns, right? Well, so you got everything from Cowboys and Aliens, or
you can get more
a haunted Western, or
vampires and Westerns. That would be awesome.
Wouldn't that be
that would be good?
Yeah,
but you have like the Westerns and the tall tales go hand in hand. I mean, it just totally works for those sort of straightforward, uncomplicated stories. Westerns just work.
I mean, we've had Abe Lincoln Vampire Hunter, but that doesn't take it to the Cowboys. I want to take it to the Cowboys.
Take it to the Cowboys.
I had a friend who worked in a library, had a patron that came up and asked him the book about Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and it was something like the guy actually thought it was real. Like he thought, this guy wrote this book, and like somebody wrote a book revealing that Abe Lincoln was a vampire hunter. He had to explain to him, like, no, it's fiction. It's not. Yeah,
he wasn't really. No.
He was a good, he did a lot as a president. He wasn't that good. He wasn't killing vampires and running the country at the same time.
Swinging an axe around.
Yeah. No.
That is hilarious.
So, Buffy.
If you were going to top
Western
your
Buffy.
list, Western Buffy. There you go.
Oh.
Old West, right? Why not? if you were going to see, there's an idea right there, Rory. You got, submit that to Roland.
Yeah.
See what happens.
I thought of it.
I know.
Barb, I'll let you color it.
Barb, you write it. You color it. You write it. Rory can write it.
Rory can write
Aaron
it.
Can
I'll ink and color it.
So we've
got
to remind everyone once again, go to YouTube and sign up for the giveaway.
Oh, yeah.
And we're gonna talk about it again. This is the 4 2-day passes to the Daytona Beach Comic Convention, September 10th and 11th. All you have to do is go to youtube.com/C/Silverline Comics. Go there, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the post. If you want to get these 4 2-day passes to Daytona Beach Comic Convention, and then you can come see me and Rory and a lot of folks who are going to be there. Brent, you're going to be there, aren't you?
I'll be there. Oh yeah.
Oh, rock on, man! You get to hang
He's
out.
why I couldn't go. He took my spot.
Oh, see.
I didn't know.
No.
But it'll be a blast. Please join us there. I hope that we have covered a lot tonight. Brent, did you want to chime in? You came in late. Is there anything else you wanted to say about Cowboys and comics? Did you have a favorite comic book that was Western related?
No.
We're not a fan.
Just a little before my time.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't know.
So not really a Western.
Kind of everything. It's exhausting keeping up with the stuff that I'm a fan of now.
Yeah.
That you're on now, right? Exactly.
Feel that.
Yeah, it isn't in your wheelhouse then. Westerns aren't in your wheelhouse.
You know, I love
you're that
good
interested in.
movies. So
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of great Westerns. I saw Once Upon a Time in the West a few months ago. Good, very long. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And
It's a little rough sitting through that one.
What about Silverado? Did you see that one, Brent?
I enjoyed Silverado.
That's a good,
Young,
Desperado.
Desperado, yeah.
Desperado.
Young Guns.
Yeah.
Young Guns. Well, that was mentioned earlier, but that's a good film.
That is fun. That's a lot of. See that I'm surprised that wouldn't be adaptable into a comic book. Because you've got younger.
It could be a
characters,
series. Yeah. It could
Yeah.
be an ongoing series easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You mean Young
And
Guns?
Yeah, Young
Young
Guns.
Guns.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you get Bon Jovi
using
to
characters
do another
like
song
them,
for
if
it.
not those characters necessarily.
Yeah, you could do
Yeah.
something like that. So we've thrown out a lot of ideas, but I think Silverline needs maybe and it's stable at some point in the future. Perhaps
we need to do a Western.
We need to do a Western.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Even if it's part of a short story anthology of
Yeah.
something we
Or
do.
something.
If I
that'd be great.
wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind doing like a 6 or 8 page story in an anthology. That would finally scratch the itch I have to do a Western comic.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Would it be strictly Old West, or would you blend some other bit of genre into it? What would you do?
As long as it's got cowboy hats and 6-shooters, I'm fine. and horses. And horses, they can
And
even have
horses.
mechanical horses.
Spurs, Stetsons, and sidearms. Oh,
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's all it takes,
the
Rob,
cowboy
right?
kisses the horse at the end.
At the end. Which was the one with Clint Eastwood where he says, "You've insulted my mule," and he wants you to apologize. Remember that?
Is it 2 mules for Sister Sarah?
No,
I think
it's a fistful
I
of
don't
dollars. I think it's
Fistful of dollars, maybe? Yeah, that
dollars.
sounds right.
You've
And
insulted
because it's
my
one of
mule.
those spaghetti westerns, and he says, He's not very happy. I'm not going to leave here till you apologize to him. And they all are just laughing, and he just stares at them ice cold until they stop laughing. And then all of a sudden that tension is there, and it's awesome because you have no idea, and you're like, "Oh man, these guys are so dead."
I know.
Of course they are. He just takes all 3 of them out, boom, boom, boom. So you have to have a shootout with the fanning effect.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
You
fanning
gotta
the
fan the
hammer.
hammer.
Even
Always love that too.
even though that is so illogical, but
Right.
Yeah.
There's
It
no
just
way
looks
you can
cool, right?
aim accurately fanning.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah. If you're close enough,
No
yeah,
way.
you can.
Well,
Remember, those guns were a lot heavier, so the recoil was less.
and they were inaccurate at distance anyway.
Oh,
so
God,
you
yeah.
wanted to get
Oh.
close
Close
when you used them.
Yeah.
talk
There's,
to any
there's
gun
very
expert,
little barrel.
if
most
you
of
talk to any gun expert, they say that fanning is totally a Hollywood thing. It does. I mean, in real life, it's very illogical.
Spray and pray.
Yeah.
That was the earliest spray and pray. It's just one of you and multiple
Well,
of
there's
them.
lots of things in Hollywood they don't use. I mean, I always think it's funny, and they always go full automatic on machine guns because it looks cool. But
Well,
nobody's
yeah, and
gonna
they have
waste the
20
clip.
bolts per gun too.
Right, and the clip is done in seconds, and if they miss, well,
Why you go for
I
belt
know,
fed.
right? You're done.
yeah.
Have they started reloading at least in some of these
Some
movies?
movies.
Some of them.
John Wick does an actually pretty good job of putting reloading.
That's actually
in.
true.
Even though
Hey, is
John
that-
Wick is more fantasy than real, he does reload in the movie.
He does reload. And he
When
actually
they get
does
it
a
right,
brash
they
check.
should.
The guy and takes his gun. So And it might even be more efficient. So,
Dean, weren't you supposed to do a promote something?
Yeah, he did.
We did.
Oh, yeah, you did. Oh,
yep,
I was thinking, how about the upcoming Kickstarter?
Yeah, the Kickstarter. I thought we'd mention that as well while we were here. But that starts September 12th.
Yeah, I believe it is. Go for it, Rob. Talk a little bit about that.
We're gonna the fourth and final issue of Twilight Grim is being sold along with kickstarted along with what is it, Sirens 2?
Sirens! I'm doing a cover. Look at
that!
Hey,
that cover looks familiar.
And that starts here in the next couple of weeks. So
good call.
Keep an eye out for that. We will talk more about that. But
we will.
The fourth and final issue of Twilight Grim, and if Roland hadn't announced this, I was going to say, can you do the Kickstarter? I finished this thing a while ago. I want to see it. I want to see it out there.
You can
yay!
You can sign up to be notified of the upcoming Kickstarter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, as part of that Kickstarter, Kalis Volume 2.
I was thinking it was Kalis, but I wasn't absolutely sure if that was the third one or not. But yes, Kalis.
So,
that's awesome, guys.
Some pretty cool covers on that. All three of them.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Y'all go check it out, Silverline Comics. And it looks like we've come to the close of our broadcast tonight. I appreciate all you guys, and we always like to close by saying what we say.
Happy trails.
We do say happy trails.
Happy trails.
Silverline.
Happy trails.
Hi, my name is Sergio Cariello, and make mine Silverline.